My neighbor turned his front yard into a nightmare art project, so I called the HOA, and they brought the hammer down like suburban Avengers. So my next-door neighbor, Greg, decided to transform his front yard into what he proudly called an art installation. What that meant in practice? A rusty toilet, 3 mannequins dressed like zombies, and a giant inflatable flamingo, all right on his front lawn, in full view of the street. He thought he was being edgy and avant-garde. To the rest of us, it looked like a spirit Halloween exploded during a plumbing disaster. Every morning, I'd wake up to tourists taking selfies with the zombie mannequins. I'm not even kidding. I'd be sipping coffee, and outside my window would be people posing with a fake zombie in a prom dress. Neighborhood kids started avoiding his house on the way to school. One mom told me her 5-year-old was having nightmares because of the scary people on Greg's lawn. I tried to handle it nicely, really. One Saturday, I knocked on his door, brought coffee, and said, "Hey, maybe we could, I don't know, compromise on the display?" Greg laughed in my face, said I didn't understand art, and that his setup was a commentary on suburban conformity. Told me I was too basic to get it. That's when I remembered something important. We live in an HOA neighborhood. Now, I've never been a fan of HOAs. They're usually that petty force of evil that sends you letters if your grass grows half an inch too tall or your mailbox isn't the approved beige. But this time, they were about to be the heroes of the story. I dug through my HOA paperwork and, jackpot, strict rules about front yard displays. Specifically, no non-functional fixtures, aka the toilet. No displays visible from the street that aren't landscaping. Absolutely no mannequins. Time to call in the big guns. I phoned up Janet, the HOA president. She's a retired librarian who lives 3 streets over and has been running the HOA for 15 years like it's her personal mission. I described Greg's installation. Janet got dead silent for a second, then said, "I'll be right over," with my camera. 20 minutes later, Janet showed up with a clipboard, a digital camera, and the no-nonsense energy of someone who takes bylaws very seriously. She paced around Greg's yard taking photos from every angle. The toilet got special attention. Apparently, visible non-functional plumbing fixtures violate multiple HOA clauses. 3 days later, Greg got a certified letter from the HOA. He had 72 hours to remove all non-compliant items from his yard or face daily fines of $50. If he failed to comply, the HOA was authorized to hire a removal service and bill him directly. Greg was furious. He came stomping over to my house, waving the letter around and accusing me of ruining his artistic vision. Said I was a petty neighbor with no appreciation for creativity. I smiled and said, "Maybe you should have read the HOA rules before moving into a planned community." The 72-hour deadline passed. Greg didn't budge. Tuesday after work, I pulled into my driveway and saw a removal truck parked in front of Greg's house. 3 guys were loading up the zombies and the toilet into the back. Greg stood on the porch, defeated, holding the inflatable flamingo like it was a cherished family heirloom. One of the removal guys handed him a bill, $250 for the service call. Greg just stood there in silence, staring at the flamingo like it betrayed him. The best part? Janet came by that weekend to follow up. She ended up chatting with me and a couple other neighbors, and we all admitted we'd been secretly waiting for someone to do something about Greg's yard. Turns out half the neighborhood hated it, but nobody wanted to be the one to make a fuss. Now, Greg's yard is perfectly normal. Just grass, some shrubs, and a sad little garden gnome that looks like even he misses the flamingo.